Thanks everyone. My name is John Bourgeois. I'm the Executive Project Manager for the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project. I work for the California State Coastal Conservancy. And I want to take kind of the next step from where Warner left off and kind of hit the take-home points of that Bayland Goals project, right? Restore complete systems, restore those processes, act quickly, right? Restoring all those marshes by 2030, and then getting to what Jeremy and Peter talked about earlier, providing areas for these marshes to migrate inland. Those are kind of the main take-home messages. And I want to assure everyone in this room, first of all, that there is a lot going on in the Bay, not just the South Bay, but the entire Bay. There are a lot of people working very hard to make this a reality, this large-scale restoration in San Francisco Bay. You can see we've got over 44,000 acres protected, 12,000 acres already restored, and another 10,000 acres enhanced. So there's a lot already in the works, but we need to do more and we need to do it faster. Of course, these habitat projects have a benefit for species, right? That's kind of the no-brainer aspect of these projects, and we're seeing really fruitful returns on our efforts, species returning faster than we anticipated. So we're seeing a lot of benefit on that front. But these wetlands also provide other ecosystem services besides just wildlife habitat. And most of you have probably seen maps like this or similar to this showing all of our economic infrastructure that's at risk from sea level rise. All of these high-tech companies that are at or adjacent to the bay and in these areas that are prone to flooding under different sea level rise scenarios. And we take for granted these images we've seen on TV over the past few years of Superstorm Sandy and Hurricane Katrina as things that are happening elsewhere. We have a short memory. This has happened here quite a few times. I have people show up to my public meetings all the time whose homes have flooded 3 times in their lifetimes. Right? Alviso is sitting 12 to 15 feet below sea level adjacent to the bay. So it's not just these high-tech companies, it's people's homes and lives that are at real risk here. And so we have a chance to do something. This was an image that showed up in the New York Times after Hurricane Sandy. This is the lower tip of Manhattan shown with all of these wetlands around. This was a big proposal of how they could protect Manhattan from future storm surge. And fantastic idea. I really like the fact that it brought attention to this concept of using wetlands as these ecosystems as infrastructure. But let's face it, who's going to buy up all that waterfront real estate in Manhattan and turn it into a marsh? Right? Anybody's going to bankroll that? Yeah, I didn't think so. But what's a fantasy for Manhattan is a reality for us. Right? The majority of these former salt production ponds that used to be wetlands are now in public ownership. Right? All we need is the political will and the funding and the creativity to make this happen. And that brings us to the project that I'm fortunate enough to manage at this time, the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project. This was a public-private partnership that took place in 2003. Over 16,000 acres went into public ownership. The majority of them, over 15,000, comprise the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project. 15,000 acres is kind of an abstract number. That's an area the size of Manhattan. So this is a very large project. It's the largest wetland restoration project on the West Coast. And this is what it looks like. This area in orange here is what Cargill is still maintaining their salt operations. The areas in blue and green comprise the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project. It spans 3 counties, it's adjacent to 9 different municipalities, and it's right in the middle of Silicon Valley. And we've had great success so far. We're over a decade in. We just completed the first phase of restoration, which included over 3,700 acres of restoration, over 7 miles of new public access trails. So we're well on our way of trying to make a difference on a landscape scale. And we've had some really great successes with returns of habitat. But like everyone's reminding us, this is where we are on the sea level rise curve. So we have to really kind of step up our approach and how we're thinking about restoring these wetlands and our timing and how we're going to do them. And this is why these concepts that Jeremy and Peter were talking about this horizontal levee and these upland transition zones, this is something that had been in our planning horizon as well for quite some time. And we're looking at scaling up these ideas in our next phase of restoration. We just released a final EAR for the next phase of our restoration projects. Because of these sea level rise concerns, we're really trying to accelerate the tidal marsh restoration and including more concepts like this. And of course, another great Peter Bay photo, the drawing here, we're really trying to focus on restoring these natural processes, right? We want these ecosystems to be as self-sustaining as possible. However, sometimes nature needs a little boost, right? It's not like it used to be. We've got a lot more constraints now. So some of these natural processes may need some augmentation, and sediment's been one thing that's been mentioned. I would like to say that we're very fortunate on the south end of the bay. A lot of that sediment that's needed can occur through natural sedimentation processes. We're looking at augmenting with dredge material in very specific locations and targeting these areas with these upland transition zones. However, in the long term, as sea level rise accelerates and maybe the suspended sediments in the bay start to decrease, we may have to start looking at intervening some. But kind of the focus of today has not so much been on the sediment, but on the source of fresh water. And remember, our project is in blue and green, and these I think Aiden had a map up of all the wastewater treatment plants, and red stars are the three that are immediately adjacent to our project. So we've got the Sunnyvale treatment plant, San Jose, Santa Clara, and then up we've got the Union Sanitary District, all immediately adjacent to our project. So when we talk about needing a lot of area, Aiden, needing the space to accommodate this, having the proximity to the water source, I think we have a very good opportunity to potentially scale this up on the next level. And this is a conceptual drawing of some of what we're planning in our Eden Landing complex, restoring this large block here over time. It's about 2,000 acres, all back to tidal wetlands. It's immediately adjacent to the Union Sanitary District. We're already planning to have large upland transition zones on the back side of this, immediately adjacent to that water source. So if we're looking for a place where we can potentially take the lessons learned from Orloma and scale it up, I think we have a great candidate here, and we're a couple years out from getting our permits and our environmental clearances. So hopefully, as data starts to come in from Orloma, we can work hand in hand and potentially have an opportunity. And it's in Congressman Swalwell's district, and so we're really hopeful that this might be an opportunity that a large-scale, on-the-ground opportunity to scale this up. And so that's all I have. I do want to acknowledge a bunch of people. It really takes this entire community to make this sort of thing happen. So I won't go through everyone, but this is a multi-agency, academia, nonprofit, private consulting. Everyone's chipping in to make this a reality, and we appreciate our entire team's support. So thank you.